Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Monday, March 7th, West Fargo City Commission meeting. I would call to your attention that Commissioner George and Commissioner Simmons are with us this evening by Zoom. I would also ask that everybody in the room please silence your cell phone. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first order of business is to approve the order of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as distributed and presented to us this evening. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item D is the approval of the minutes of February 22nd, 2022. Pages 2 through 4, they have been distributed.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 22nd, 2022 as presented on pages 2 through 4. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the building permits. They have been, the building permit report has been distributed. It's on pages 5 through 7.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits that have been distributed on pages 5 through 7. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. We have items A through F, pages starting on page 8 through 33. It has been distributed and is in the packets.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda, items A through F as distributed. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving into the regular agenda, item number 1 is the second reading and final approval of a zoning ordinance amendment to section 4-449, allowing for a telecommunications tower within a public facilities district. Mr. Malachi Peterson, a planner for the city of West Fargo. It's on pages 34 through 45. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and Commissioners. This ordinance amendment would allow for telecommunications towers within the P Public Facilities District as a conditional use. Telecommunications towers have traditionally been allowed within residential zones, heavy industrial zones, and commercial zones. Due to an oversight, the Public Facilities District was never added to the list of acceptable zoning districts for the location of telecommunications towers when the zone was originally created in the year 2000. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this ordinance amendment at their February 8th meeting, and a public hearing and first reading of this ordinance was held at the City Commission meeting on February 22nd. I'm here and available in case you have any additional questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Peterson?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the second reading and the final approval of zoning ordinance amendment to section 4-449, allowing for a telecommunications tower within the public facilities district. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 is a final approval, conditional use permit allowing a wireless telecommunications tower within a public facilities zoning district. Again, Mr. Peterson, a planner for the city of West Fargo, pages 46 through 67. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. We have received an application for a conditional use permit which would allow for the construction of a telecommunications tower at Cheyenne High School, which is Zone P Public Facilities. This application was sort of what got us started on the previous agenda item. This tower would be built in the same location as a current floodlight for the football field and would have a light on it to replace the light that is being torn down. Basically, they just need to put a new tower in that would be a lot stronger to hold telecommunications equipment. Telecommunications equipment would then be placed on top of the light and then screened from view. The applicant has submitted documentation required by the Federal Aviation Administration and the Federal Communications Commission showing that the proposed structure would not affect flight operations out the West Fargo Municipal Airport. Property owners within 350 feet were notified, as well as applicable agencies and departments. We received one phone call from a neighbor who had a question about the location of the tower, as well as concerns about potential health effects of 5G cell towers. West Fargo 2.0 does not prohibit or encourage the construction of telecommunications towers within West Fargo. The area where the tower will be constructed is centrally located within an already developed school complex. Staff is recommending that the city approve the proposed application with recommended conditions of approval as follows. 1, that a signed conditional use permit agreement is received, and 2, that the passage of the conditional use permit is contingent upon the approval of the previous text amendment that was just approved on that allows telecommunications towers as a conditional use in a P public facilities district. At their February 8th, 2022 meeting, the West Fargo Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the application with staff recommendations. I'm available tonight, as is the applicant, in case you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
Mayor, Commissioner George?
I recognize Commissioner George.
Yes, just a quick comment. I did have a couple people reach out to me that were concerned about putting a 5G tower out of school and the health concerns. So I just wanted to mention that is that there are some concerns about their out of school.
Thank you. Anything else from Mr. Peterson? Questions, comments from the commission? What's your pleasure?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdovic. It's been moved and seconded to allow a conditional use permit for allowing a wireless communications tower within a public facility zoning district. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Olson seconds. We have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion? Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 3 on the regular agenda is a request to approve the cost of a new salt storage building. Mr. Matt Anvik, Director of Public Works, City of West Fargo.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Back on December 20th of last year, I brought 4 options to fix the slide that we have up in Drain 21 that was created by the placement of our current salt storage facility. That night, you guys did decide to go ahead with option 4, which is to build a new sand salt facility on a different site, and then we would tear down the old one, possibly selling that, and then fixing the slide as well. In January, we published the RFQ, and then we also sent out about 5 different contractors that we knew were kind of interested around town as well. We received 2 bids back on them after it closed. One was from ICS for $1,833,785, and then another one for the Meyer Architecture Group. They partnered with Interstate Engineering out of Fargo here and NASET Construction. Their bid was $1,072,449.91. We did go back and meet with the Meyer Group to try and find a way to trim some costs, because it did come back quite a bit higher than our original quote that we had got on the building. The original contractor that kind of gave us a quote for that, we were at about 700,000. Was unable to make the bid because the time frame, they were just, I think they were 19 months out with construction, so they were unable to do it at the time. We then met with the Meyer Group and they went through a few options to trim that down. As part of doing that, Public Works is going to take over a little bit of the mechanical and plumbing, and the total cost came down to $906,400. And then the work that Public Works will take care of is probably about $50,000 is the estimate for materials and cost. So now we're down to the total price would be about $956,400. One of the reasons we're bringing this forward now, I guess it's got a little bit of a closer time frame, is we received word that the material or the person or the company that has the material is instituting a price increase on the 15th of March. So this way, if we can get it in front of the commission and it does approve, we'd be able to get it on a price lock at the price that was quoted. If not, past the 15th, it'll be anywhere between 5 and 10% increase on materials for that. With the salt, or with the slide that we have, we do need to do something fairly soon. We still feel that a building like this is the best long-term solution. As far as the other options that we had previously brought up. Granted that this cost is a little bit higher than we expected. I still think this is one of the best routes to go. It does fill a bunch of different needs, as well as getting our brine maker out of our current building that it's in. That's causing some negative effects on the building, is corrosion. And it's also, we're getting at salt film on the equipment that we're getting corrosion on there. With this larger building, we'd be able to store more salt. This year, if we'd be able to buy, in larger quantities, we probably would have been able to save about $20,000 this year with the larger the quantities of salt. This building we have now currently is just not big enough for our needs. So with that, I'd like to, either propose two options to the commission tonight. One would be to approve and award the contract to the Meyer Group for $906,400. And then the rest of the cost would be, for that $50,000 would be Public Works would take care of that. And we'd move forward with their proposal and build that new salt facility. Or the other option with the increased cost would be to direct me to go over our RFQ and rebid the project and see if we can get better bids. One thing that, we could rebid it and it'll just kind of push our schedule back. We might not have the building ready until next spring, so it means we might have to push our schedule back a little bit, but this time, prices of material, everything's going up. So I kind of put that in the commission's hands and see where you guys want me to go with that. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Amdick. Commissioners, questions?
Mayor,
Commissioner Simmons.
thank you. Matt, I'm just wondering, you mentioned the old building, but you didn't say if we plan on selling it, keeping it, or what was the plan with that one?
We plan to sell that. We've had a couple interested people in it. I didn't put any dollar figure down because at this time I'm not quite sure what we'd be able to sell it for. I didn't want to put a dollar figure in and be off one way or the other.
Do you have any idea what it's worth?
All depends on, the cost to tear it down and move it around. It could be anywhere from $25,000 to maybe $80,000, depending on who would want it and how much work are they going to put into it, or what we would do when we take it down. Probably safe to say, probably around the $50,000 mark would be fairly close.
So it probably sounds like to me that you're not necessarily maybe want to sell it. What could we use it for? What would it be in our best interest if we didn't sell it? What else could we use it for?
I mean, there's always the option, if we didn't sell it, we probably could put it in a different spot. That would come with the cost of moving it and everything, but we would probably be able to house some of our sand during the summer months, or we'd have a space for our granite that we use as well.
Okay, thank you.
Keeping in mind the nature of the construction of this salt shack is we'd have to pour all new concrete footings and stuff in order to accommodate the structure. So that would be a substantial, if we were going to try and keep it for ourselves. So,
Yeah, correct.
yeah. All right. Are there any other questions of Mr. Anvik?
Probably just more of a comment, I think.
Please, Commissioner Jurdevig.
I think if we wait, we have a significant risk of the price even going up more than it already has, so.
I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Just for clarification again, so with the email we received this afternoon, Matt, the new price is $906,400 plus the expense of whatever labor and materials that Public Works would put into the facility, which is estimated at $50,000. So we're at $956,000. We need to account for your men's time and that type of thing in the evaluation of what the overall cost is. So again, we're talking about $956,000 plus or minus. You could be off a little on the plumbing materials and or your labor, but that's your best estimate, $956,000. Any other commissioners? Yep, yes, Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jarvis. One other question, I'm sure I missed something, but where's this money coming from?
It was the capital improvement sales tax would be used to cover this.
You hear that, Mark? Capital City?
I did,
Yeah, right.
as usual.
And
Everything's coming out of there.
yeah, and during the course of the day, there's been conversations with Mr. Larson with regard to that, and we have unencumbered funds that can handle it.
Okay, thank you.
It was part of the CIP at one point here, but I don't know what the year it was projected to be.
Yeah.
Not that we had promised any funds at that time, but has been on the radar to do this.
Yeah,
We
I
need
think
to get it
it
fixed.
was either 22 or 23, but
It was.
I think we had it estimated at that time about 750,000.
Correct.
Well, I guess this will take the place of that Caterpillar we didn't give you that, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna preserve our other equipment by getting those pieces of equipment out of, or you get the brine out of this shed that it's in right now that's not designed for this, so it'll save us a little bit of wear and tear on those too.
Correct.
The brine is very corrosive. Any additional questions? Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner
Or to
Jurdevig.
accept the bid from the Meyer Group.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the cost of the new salt sand storage building and award a contract to the Meyer Architectural Group for the price of $906,400 with additional work to be done by Public Works. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anvik. Item number 4 is a request to commit the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Mr. Jim Larson, Finance Director for the City of West Fargo. Welcome, Mr. Larson.
Thank you. Commissioner President and Commissioners, thank you for allowing us to put this request before you tonight. There's been a lot of discussion over the years of the funds that have been received the last 2 years from the federal government for the CARES Act funding and also for the American Rescue Plan Act. Tonight I'm here to talk about the American Rescue Plan Act. Those funds have been received, half those funds have been received by the city of West Fargo in the amount of $2.9 million. We expect to receive another $2.9 million yet here in 2022. So that we will have about $5.8 million received. When those funds were originally authorized by the federal government, they were very restrictive. They could be used for water or sewer or broadband projects within the city. So at that time, we have done some discussion to see how could those be applied to make sure that we have proper use for them. So there are some parts of these funds that have been received by the city is that they have to be committed by no later than December 31st, 2024. The other part is they have to be fully expended by December 31st of 2026. So we would like to make sure that we have the opportunity to expend them properly. It is a fair amount of funds and with the restricted. I also want to make sure I've made you aware of that. On January 6th of this year, the government did come out with some additional guidelines and it broadened the use of those funds. And they basically just said they can be used, they automatically give you a $10 million revenue loss, which we did not have, so I've got a little bit of concern on how this is going to flush out in the end. But it could be used for city services, and that's very broad in their definitions. We've been receiving a lot of opportunities from consultants on how we could spend the money in their companies, so it's been very generous of them. Tonight, what we'd like to do is ask the commission to consider appropriating these funds or dedicating these funds to the lagoon decommissioning project. We have checked, and this is a qualifying project under the original guidelines as well as the expanded guidelines. The total cost of that project was estimated at 12 to 16 million. Our Director of Public Works has assured us, even without getting that particular dozer, he can get it in less than that, but he'll still probably come back and ask for that again as well. But the thing about this project is if it meets the requirements of those funds. It brings the funds forward and allows us to commit. We do have to start reporting what our intentions are for the funds by April 30th of this year. And we have already started the process to make sure that we're reporting properly as we go through and then report monthly. So the request is to have the commission consider committing these funds for the lagoon decommissioning project. Be glad to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Commissioners, any questions?
I have one, Mayor.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Jim. I know that this is what we can use it for. What I don't know is what are some of the other stuff that we could use it for that we're not talking about?
One example that's come forward is we could use it for purchasing some additional modules on the NeoGov software that allow us to handle our onboarding and to handle some other components within our human resources. That's an example, and NeoGov has done an excellent job of providing how it works in the guidelines. It might be a project within the public safety. It might be other services provided within the city. Again, it was a very broad definition when they said city services.
I guess let me ask I asked the wrong question. The better question to ask is what services that are more direct to our citizens that we can provide, such as relief and stuff like that? I mean, is that part of this program at all? You'd think it would be, but.
Mr. Simmons, Mrs. Fisk is going to respond to that question.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Simmons. The purpose of allocating funds to this particular project is in order to try and keep our sewer rates from not having such a rise, such a large increase. We already have a multitude of sewer projects that we need to fund, and we've committed to trying to fund those with rates. But in this case, this would benefit everybody within the city that pays a utility bill, because it would keep that bulk of the rate increase that we would need out of there. So does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Tina, in a sense. But I guess the question I think that I want to know is, can we tell our citizens that this is basically, I'm assuming you're going to say it's not lowering their rates, but it's definitely not going to raise their rates.
Commissioner Simmons,
For
one
sewer
other
and water.
so this would help minimize any increase to their rates. The other component of this is by allowing us to use it in this, there was sales tax, capital sales tax dollars committed to the project originally by commission. These funds would then move back into the sales tax and allow us to use it for other projects, hopefully reducing specials, reducing other direct costs into our citizens. Because the sales tax have direct infrastructure and broader uses than the current ARPA funds. So we believe that
And
that would be a direct
that's the
benefit.
answer I wanted to hear. Thank you, Jim.
Okay,
That's
thank
what
you.
I wanted to hear.
Additional questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the American Rescue Plan Act funds designation as per Mr. Larson this evening. Is there any further discussion? I have a comment to make, and I want to thank the administrative team, the finance team. We've purposely have held back on spending some of these dollars because we knew that there was additional opportunities coming forth as to how we could spend it. So we didn't just rush out and spend those dollars. And so they've been in safekeeping up until this point. The fact that we're going to unencumber some of the dollars with regard to sewer sales tax is a very positive thing. So I'd like to commend the Finance and Public Works for their reservation as to how we were going to spend this money till we were most comfortable what would have the best effect. So congratulations on that. We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Larson. Item number 5 is the second reading of Ordinance 1207, parking on snow emergency routes. Mr. Shockley, City Attorney, City of West Fargo.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. Before you have the second reading of the amendment to the parking on snow emergency roads, adding the downtown Cheyenne Street area. Please note that the ordinance has been changed from the first to the second reading to remove the side streets. And so this would only cover Cheyenne Street itself from 7th Avenue Main to Main Avenue. That would be the only area that would be covered by the snow declaration.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Any questions of Mr. Shockley?
Just to make the comment that I had some contacts with business owners there as well, and they kind of said the same thing. Let's just do the main drag and get that done.
That is correct. We had conversations with the yards and several of the business owners downtown, and they were very helpful in giving us some guidance on that. So this is a different from the first reading. The side streets are not included. Any additional questions of Mr. Shockley?
Just a comment,
Please, Commissioner Olson.
that this is just for when a snow emergency declaration is declared,
Correct.
where this would come into effect.
That is correct.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Ordinance 1207 as amended from the first reading regarding the parking on snow emergency routes on Cheyenne Street. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 6 is the City Administrator's Report. Mrs. Fisk, City Administrator.
Good evening, excuse me. Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I only have a couple of items, one of which is to remind you that there is a special CIP meeting at 1 o'clock coming up on the 10th, where staff will review where we're at and be available to answer questions. The other item I want to do.
Time and place again, please, Mrs. Fisk.
The time is 1 o'clock on the 10th, and it will be in the commission chambers. The other item that we have is that we have narrowed down the economic development manager position to 2 candidates. And so what we will be doing is having each candidate write a report of what they would like to accomplish in the first 6 months. And then President Dardis and a member of the communications team have offered to go with those individuals in an afternoon separately and meet with various West Fargo businesses. So we can get feedback from the businesses and how they feel they are and get additional input from those that brought them around. So I just want to give you an update on that, and if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk.
Thank you.
Commissioners online, anything for Mrs. Fisk?
No.
Correspondence?
There is none.
Okay, thank you. Non-agenda items. Commissioners, any non-agenda items you'd like to bring forward? All right. Staff, any non-agenda items that any of the staff would like to bring forward? All right, hearing none. Commissioner Olson.
Well, Mr. Simmons.
Commissioner Simmons, excuse me.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to